Can you beat Fallout New Vegas on hardcore mode and very hard difficulty without taking any damage? Holy fuck, that's a mouthful. Don't know how I'm gonna title this one, but anyway, the rules are as follows. Rule 1 is that I must have my HP set to 1 at all times. I can do this by using a console command. This will ensure that any time I take a hit I will automatically die. Rule 2 is that I must have hardcore mode and very hard difficulty turned on at all times. And rule 3 is that I must follow the natural progression of the main storyline. That is to say that I will not be allowed to skip some of the main quests and head straight to New Vegas. Everyone clear and happy with the rules? No? Great, let's get started. For those of you who don't know Fallout New Vegas, the story begins with your character, the courier, being shot in the head by a man in a checkered suit. There was a blinding blurry light as I woke up in Doc Mitchell's house, dazed and confused.
There is nothing to worry about.
You're awake.
You're gonna be just fine.
How about that?
I'll take good care of you.
Whoa, easy there, easy.
I'm your #1 fan.
After I came round proper and was back on my feet, it was time for me to choose my stats at the Vigor Tester machine. I kept my strength and perception at 5, I drained endurance and charisma as they're going to be worthless to me, and used the excess points to pour into intelligence and agility, maxing them out. I had some points left, so I put them into luck. Then Doc Mitchell ran through a quick assessment with me to test my mental capacity. I gave the first answer and agreed to everything that he said because if you find yourself in an inbred backwater town, it's best to just smile and agree with people until you can get the hell out of there.
Why would I leave? I like it here.
I picked barter, guns and sneak as my tag skills. For my traits I picked trigger discipline, making my weapons 20% more accurate, and skilled, giving me a +5 to all skills at the cost of -10% experience going forward. Doc Mitchell returned all of my possessions to me, kissed my boo-boo all better, and sent me on my merry way. I made sure that hardcore mode and very hard difficulty were turned on. I then used a console command to drop my HP to 1. The first thing I did was attempt to sell most of the overpowered equipment that you get given at the start of the game. This is personal choice as I feel it makes the game extremely unbalanced to have such good weaponry and armor at the start. I spoke to Sunny Smiles and she gave me a varmint rifle. We did some target practice on some sarsaparilla bottles before moving on to moving targets. Every combat engagement going forward is now a serious threat to me because everything will kill me on contact. And while these geckos may appear small and unassuming, they are quite fast. And with the difficulty being on max, they don't exactly die to 1 or 2 shots either. Now, aside from it being in my rules that I have to follow the main story, I also have to do this to get experience. After being sent to collect some supplies to make some healing powder, I had my first death against a bloatfly. After completing the tutorial, I got a nice chunk of experience for talking to Trudy. It seems there's a group called the Powder Gangers that want to invade and take over Goodsprings. This gives me the option to side with Goodsprings or the Powder Gangers. I fixed Trudy's radio and hacked her terminal to get a little bit of extra experience. This boosted me up to level 2. I put sneak and gun skill up to 50 and then put the rest of the points into barter. I managed to convince everyone except Easy Pete to help me with the Ghost Town gunfight. Now I actually thought that this fight would be very difficult because 1 hit and I'm dead. Also, I wasn't doing a lot of damage to the Powder Gangers. However, the citizens of Goodsprings did manage to hold their own and we carried the day. So now I was hot on Benny's trail and heading towards Prim. I got ambushed by some geckos that, quite frankly, were extremely difficult to kill. So my next task would be to deal with the Powder Gangers that have invaded Prim. It seems they've taken the local deputy hostage, and it's my job to rescue him. I tried to sneak shot the 2 Powder Gangers that are located outside, however, my first few attempts did not go well. I swapped to a 357 Magnum revolver because it does more damage, however I missed again and ended up getting killed. Several more attempts later and I was able to successfully take down one of the Powder Gangers with a varmint rifle sneak shot. Of course, then the other powder ganger finished me off, but not to worry because quicksaving is my friend here. Eventually, he decided it would be better if he just ran away instead of repeatedly killing me. I guess he got bored of it or something, but I was able to make it inside the casino. Now, it's pretty dark in here. It's also a closed, confined space with lots of walls and corners, so I thought I'd use this to my advantage, luring the powder gangers to the entrance and then hopefully picking them off with a sneak shot one by one. This did not go to plan. I managed to take out 2 of the powder gangers in quick succession with sneak shots with my 357 Magnum revolver, and picked off another one with 3 more shots while he was looking for me. Now I just had to deal with the powder gang leader. The next room has quite a few powder gangers as well as the powder ganger leader. My plan here was to sneak shot one, run away until I was hidden again, come back, take out another one, run away again, rinse and repeat. So after a lot more messing around, I finally was able to take out the convict leader, only to find that I immediately died. At the time I wasn't sure why this had happened because I knew he was the only enemy left and he was now dead. However, I had a feeling it was something to do with survival mode. So my water requirement was at 199. I tested this theory and let it go over 200 to see what would happen. Sure enough, I died. Now, this is because I've set my HP to 1, and I guess when you become dehydrated your health drops or something. But I have purified water on me, so this is not an issue. I rescued Deputy Beagle and we got out of there. I immediately got killed by the powder ganger that ran away earlier. I headed back inside the casino, bought some supplies, and made Prim Slim the Sheriff of Prim. This gave me enough experience points to level up where I put all of my points into speech. This is going to be extremely useful later when dealing with the negotiations at Boulder City. Deputy Beagle advised me that my next stop should be Niton. I decided to hug the wall along the side of the dry lake because there is a lot of fire ants as well as raiders around and I didn't want to deal with any of that.
Yeah! Who won the lottery? I did! Yes, we won the lottery! I'm getting a penis butler.
I then spoke to Vulpus and told him that I would spread word of the Legion's atrocities. Now, it was pretty dark out, so I used the wait command so that it would be light and I could actually see the enemies that were coming. Ah yes, of course, the whole dehydration thing. So I did drink some purified water, however decided it might just be best to not use the wait command and continue on in the dark. I died. And then I died. And then I died again. It took 2 sticks of dynamite just to take out one of the raiders, at which point I thought, screw this, I'm running to Novak. This guy snuck up on me and by pure chance I happened to turn round at just the last second, used VATS and blew his brains out. Fast forwarding to a month later because Oblivion Remastered came out and I don't remember what the f*** I was doing. Oh yeah, that's right, on the way to Novak, a group of merchants got attacked by Caesar's Legion as well as some Night Stalkers. I was thankful that these survived as I really did need to buy some supplies. Then I headed into Novak and talked to Manny to ask him where Benny had gone.
Maybe we can do a trade. You need my help. There's something I need too.
I don't like where this is going. Thankfully, he only wants me to clear out some ghouls at the old Repcon Center, so I bought some more supplies, specifically water, and headed off. Now, none of this is actually necessary, however, because of the difficulty level, I do need the experience. Clearing out all the ghouls outside gave me enough experience to level up, where I hit level 4. I put all of my points into speech and took the Educated perk. Upon entering the facility, a strange voice over the intercom instructed me on where to find the ghouls I was looking for. So I planned to side with Jason and the Bright followers in order to complete the Come Fly With Me quest, as I feel there's a lot more experience from doing so. However, the feral ghouls outside are fair game and will attack you even if you are aiding Jason Bright, so they all have to die first. I used stealth for my advantage and took them all out relatively easy. Then I talked to Chris Havisham and Jason Bright before being given my instructions. It seems that all the ghouls want to fly away on rockets to the Promised Land. If that sounds like cult behaviour, it's because it is.
Soon we will leave this lame planet.
After speaking to the Night King Davison, I was able to convince him that his stealth boy shipments were not actually here. After they all left, this cleared the way for the ghouls to enter the lower levels. Okay, so this next part was really f***ing irritating, because there's a few items that I have to collect in order for them to launch their rockets. Now, in order to do this, I have to leave the Repcon Center. Fair enough. However, all of the ghouls had respawned outside, and I assumed that you couldn't fast travel on hardcore mode. So I had to shoot my way out of the center twice, repeatedly dying with each attempt. I wasted so much time with this because I didn't know at this time that you can fast travel. After collecting the necessary supplies, I gave them to Jason Bright and launched the ghoulies into space. This gave me enough experience to level up again, where I distributed my points between guns, speech and sneak, before finally reporting back to Manny and getting the information I could have easily gotten from his terminal. Making it to Boulder City, I talked to Jessup, one of the Great Khans, and convinced him to surrender. This allowed me to hit level 6. I distributed my points between sneak and guns and took the next Swift Learner perk. Upon leaving Boulder City, I convinced Lieutenant Monroe to let the Great Khans go. This gave me enough experience to level up again. Upon reaching level 7, I put most of my skill points into guns and the rest into barter, before heading towards New Vegas, where I was ripped apart by wild dogs. Making it to the 188 trading post, I met up with Veronica. I was going to need her to get into the Brotherhood of Steel bunker later on. So once I made it to Freeside, I played in the Atomic Wrangler until they kicked me out. This would give me enough caps to pass a credit check to enter New Vegas. Finally making it to New Vegas, I spoke to Benny and convinced him to meet me on his own in his hotel room. However, I know that you get ambushed here, and there was absolutely no way that I was going to be able to take him down. I did, however, convince him to let me go. I then played the Tops Casino to get some more caps until they kicked me out, before heading off to see Mr. House. Now, originally I'd wanted to just kill Benny and get the platinum chip back now, however, it just wasn't possible. I mean, it would have been if I'd actually put the effort in, but never mind. So Mr. House will give you the generic objectives that near enough all the factions will give you. Deal with the White Gloves and the Omertas. I wasn't going to do any of this, however I did meet them, before sleeping in my shiny new hotel bed. Now the great thing about the room that Mr. House gives you is you have a sink with radiation-free water, as well as a safe place to sleep. And once I was all rested up and ready, it was time for me to begin my own coup to take New Vegas. Yeah, okay, I know, I'm going with yes man, I'm taking the easy route. My primary reason for this is I don't really fancy blowing up the Brotherhood of Steel bunker without taking damage. It's literally impossible. But conversing with Yes Man allowed me to hit level 8, where I distributed my points between speech and barter. I also took the last perk of Swift Learner. I then hit the Gunrunner's arsenal and bought an anti-material rifle because, obviously, as well as some recon armor, purely to boost my sneak skill. So my next objective was to make it to the Nellis airbase to meet the boomers. I met a nice old man along the way and decided to follow him in the hope that he would lead me safely to the Nellis base. Unfortunately, I lost his trail when he decided to go in 100 different directions. Keen not to share in his fate, I decided I would actually make it to the Nellis base the way that is intended. You see, normally you can just hug the wall to the cliff on the left and make your way through. You will take some damage, but you can get to the other side safely. However, the slightest breeze will kill me, so this was not an option. Believe me, I know, because I tried it several times. So the way that the game thinks you should get through to the Nellis base is to hide inside the house rubble until the bombardment stops, and then move on to the next house. I had a few failed attempts at this before finally getting it to actually start working, remembering to save after every bombardment. Eventually I'd made it through to the gate and spoke to Mother Pearl. Now, you can kill all the boomers, however I find them extremely useful to have as allies. Doing our jobs and helping the boomers will give you fame. Increasing your fame will eventually get them to like you, and eventually they will join me. By assisting ever so slightly with the medical side of things, I gained enough experience to level up again. Hitting level 9, I distributed my skill points between guns, medicine, and speech. I listened to the mad nonsensical ramblings of a child inside the Boomer Museum before dying once again of dehydration. I really need to watch that. I currently have 10 purified water, so this was easily resolved before heading off to deal with the ants misbehaving quest. Thanks to the anti-material rifle, this quest was an absolute joke and I completed it in no time before returning to Raquel. I also repaired the solar arrays and rose the Lady of the Lake up using the rebreather, because if I started to lose HP I would have died instantly. Doing this allowed me to hit level 10, where I put all of my points into barter. And with all this done, I returned to Pearl and now had the boomers as an ally. So now that I have the boomers on side, my next objective is to at least meet a few more factions, namely the Brotherhood of Steel and the Great Khans. I used Veronica to meet the Brotherhood of Steel before immediately leaving and heading towards Cazador Canyon. Now, as is to be expected, this was an absolute shit show. Thanks to my anti-material rifle, I can do plausible damage against the Cazadors, and I even had hope of taking them down. However, they ran through me like a knife through paper. I even tried using a stealth boy in the hope that I could just sneak through here. However, they're a lot more perceptive than I gave them credit for. I did, however, manage to get myself up on one of the cliff edges where they couldn't reach me, and began to slowly pick away at them. And while yes, it was quite time consuming and there is a lot of Cazadors, this is to be expected on any difficulty, and the fact that I could actually take them down was enough. I also found that using WarmFuzzy was next to useless, due to the distance that I would have to keep in order to stop the Cazadors from getting me, which meant my accuracy with VATS was diminished severely. I used well over 50 rounds of ammunition getting through here, and when I finally did, luckily I remembered to save because I then got killed by a giant mantis. How embarrassing. After meeting the Great Khans and resupplying with food and water, I headed off towards Cottonwood Cove. Now I'm not going to show this because it wasted a lot of time, however, essentially what happened is once I went into the underground bunker, you will be hit with radiation, and since I was already highly irradiated, my health dropped and I died. Learning from my mistakes, I headed back to the fort before travelling all the way back to Good Springs to get my radiation cured. After speaking with Caesar, he handed me back the platinum chip and sent me into the underground vault to destroy whatever was in there. I put on a radiation suit, although truthfully I didn't know how much this would actually help. I would have to be quick in here because once my radiation levels hit over 200, I would succumb to radiation poisoning and die instantly. Stealth was most certainly my friend here, and I was able to do impressive amounts of damage against the robots and turrets. However, with my radiation ticking up at 1 point a second, I would have to be quick. I went into the vault with a radiation level of 0, and at 200 I would die. This would give me exactly 3 minutes and 20 seconds to get through this vault. But thanks to sneak shotting with armor-piercing rounds and repeatedly quick saving, I did manage to get through here in the nick of time. Well, that is to say until I got to the actual room with the terminal that I need to upgrade the Securitron army. Things went south very quickly. Sure, I was able to get a sneak shot off on one of the turrets, but it wouldn't kill it in one hit, and then I would be shot down. I managed to get a lucky critical shot against the first turret I was trying to take down before closing the door. 1 down, 2 to go. I could then save, and this would give me time to work out how to take out the other turrets. And I was killed. Again. And again. Then I had the idea to use a stealth boy, as I would be guaranteed a sneak shot, and managed to take out both the turrets, reactivated the Securitron army and upgraded them before heading back to Caesar. But not before leveling up, putting nearly all of my points into barter. Oh, also, I punched Benny to death because it was a lot of fun. I returned to my hotel suite to rest and recover, making sure to drink plenty of water before attempting to take down Mr. House. After using his terminal, I was immediately killed by his Securitrons on my first attempt. However, with a bit of luck on my second attempt, I was able to make it through to Mr. House. Interesting side note, this guy took 2 shots from an anti-material rifle. Then, connecting Yes Man up to the database, he gave me a little presentation about the power of the Securitron upgrades. This allowed me to hit level 12, where I put all of my points into speech and took the Here and Now perk, allowing me to hit level 13. This time I distributed my skill points between guns and speech, before telling Yes Man that I'd pretty much met all of the tribes that he would have asked me to meet. I then assassinated an NCR trooper outside the Eldorado station and stole his uniform, giving me access to the station without being attacked. I also didn't bother with President Kimball because who needs that headache? Upon commencing the battle for Hoover Dam, I immediately died from dehydration. This is because the battle will always start at exactly 2 PM, therefore I would have to make sure I was sufficiently hydrated to account for this. Because if the clock moved forward enough, I would always just die from dehydration. And at long last, the battle for Hoover Dam could commence proper. I began by hanging back and trying to snipe the Great Khans. I had to be careful here as I didn't want to lose all of my Securitrons and NCR allies. Upon dying, one of the Great Khans began to glitch out in a way that made me question reality itself. Slowly but surely, I began to creep forward, picking off legionaries as I went with my allies. The slightest breeze would have killed me, however, because of the sheer power of the anti-material rifle, I was actually able to help. The legionaries and centurions seemed to be more concerned with my Securitron army and NCR troopers than me, so I pretty much had free range to shoot whatever I wanted. The boomers did what the boomers do best, and I activated the Securitron army under the fort. I then put on the naughty nightwear, read my magazines for Salesman's Weekly and Meeting People in order to boost my speech and barter skills as high as they would go. I then convinced Legate Lanius to get the fuck off my land, threw General Oliver off the tower, and beat Fallout New Vegas on hardcore mode in very hard difficulty without taking damage. So first of all, let me just start by saying that this challenge was extremely fun. I don't do New Vegas challenges as often as I would like to, although I do play a lot of it casual. Also, this challenge was quite a unique experience for me as it allowed me to use some of the best weapons in the game, whereas normally I'm constricted to something pretty useless. If you guys have any ideas for any New Vegas challenges, please do let me know in the comments below. I really enjoyed this and I hope you guys did too. And finally, I'd just like to say thank you so much for watching today. Please like, subscribe and all that good stuff. Leave any comments if you do have any. And I will see you guys next time. Take care.